Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. So, Bill, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you.
Let's hit the ground running. What got you from software engineering, which is, one would say, quite a comfortable spot, to, going into specializing in pricing and going on your own?
Yeah, that's I never, ever thought I would end up in pricing. It's not the place. I said, when I was, entering university, I wasn't like, someday I'm going to be a pricing person. It just never happened. So, I'm a software developer is where I come from. I've been in software for 30 years. I've written everything from commercial off-the-shelf software you can buy at like a place like Best Buy to software that runs helicopters. So I've done everything in the software space. But one thing I realized coming up through that world was I really didn't like the enterprise grind. So I decided to start my own business. And so that was 2007. I started my first company. Started off just as me bumming a seat, software developer, consultant. And I got to work on some pretty great projects with some really cool people. During that time, I started working out of a co-working space that had a really cool group of people all doing amazing things. This was back in like 2009. I remember somebody offered me a Bitcoin for $10. I probably should have taken that. Hey, I didn't, but yes. There we go. So that's when I really started digging in and building my own business, which is kind of the first taste of pricing I got, right? Which was, I have to figure out what to charge for my stuff. And very, very quickly, I realized that charging by the hour absolutely sucks. And so I started to productize our service. And so we were a mobile app development design studio at this stage. The iPhone stuff was coming on. I had a big, strong background in mobile for years before that with all the uncool mobile stuff. And I started by building a small piece of software. Once we got our productized service off the ground, I built a small piece of software to help us show off the price. Like, what are you going to get? And it looked very much like a good, better, best SaaS pricing page, right? And so, fast forward several years, we had this piece of software. It was just for us. We could make it for an individual client. We could send them the link. It was just for them. They could fill out like a HubSpot form, I think, at the time, and it would just kick off a project for us. And so, because as software developers, that's what we do. We automate everything, right? That's our that's kind of our job. So anyway, I had a ton of people asking me, where we got this tool, and that led to my head of sales really pushing hard on me. His name is Taylor Bond. He's fantastic. He's like, look, let's go build a product with this thing. And so we started a company, and it was called SalesRight. And it was basically taking that software and turning it into something that B2B SaaS companies could use for their custom quoting, right? So it was that, on the right-hand side of a B2B SaaS pricing page, there's always that contact us enterprise tier. Right. That's where we lived. And so that's kind of like, right from, the early days of MindSea, I can trace it back to, getting into the pricing with that product, building that startup. And then we got acquired in 2020. And then since then, I've just been 100% focused on helping B2B SaaS founders and their teams with pricing, positioning, product, all of those things. So really centering in around those things. Mm-hmm.
So building software to drive helicopters has kind of an appeal to it, but you know what? I'll understand the shift to pricing. That sounds fair enough and exciting as well.
Yeah, so, I wish it was driving the helicopters, but it was maintaining the helicopters. Far less sexy, but still fun.
So B2B SaaS companies, and you help them price better. Can you tell us a bit more about this? What problem would you say you solve right now? And for what? So B2B SaaS companies, but like any specific industry, any specific, mm-hmm. Can you give us the meat of the sausage?
Yeah, I mean, we work with companies of all types, in terms of in the B2B SaaS space. I love working with, PLG teams. I also love working with, sales-led teams or the best ones are when they have a combination of both, which most PLG companies these days have that. So I really like that because there's just a lot of volume and there's a lot of transactions. Now, I love the enterprise stuff too. It's just a bit of a longer process. So what we help them with, honestly, is value alignment mostly. It's making sure that whatever they're offering to their customers is aligned with the progress their customers are trying to make. So I'm a very big fan of jobs to be done. And I center all of my work around sort of the jobs to be done theory and framework that customers are trying to make progress against something. And how do we fit into that world? And how can we help them, solve the problems inside that job to be done? And if we can start to articulate our pricing, our packaging, our positioning around that, we're going to be in a much better position to capture all the value that we're owed. And so it's really about alignment with your customer, understanding what they're trying to get done, and then package and price around that in such a way that they've got the expansion revenue they're looking for. They've got their, if it's optimized for acquisition, optimizing for retention, all of those angles we can take care of through that. So it's really about customer value and getting companies aligned with that, because it's surprising to me, the number of companies I talk to, that when I get their leadership team in a room or whoever happens to be on the pricing team, they've never actually sat down and had a conversation about product value and how their customers perceive it as a group, which is really enlightening and a lot of fun. So, yeah.
So what's the, trying to understand the benefit, not the output, right? What's the, and I think we start grasping it, obviously, but I love pricing because I'm a huge fan of Alex Hormozy. People listening to the show will know that, who is very much like, double your prices, see what happens, triple your prices, But so let's start with this. What's the biggest pain point of your clients when it comes to not pricing properly? Because the thing is, they might not be even aware that this is a pricing issue. So what is the consequence of not having the right pricing?
Yeah. Usually it shows up in flat growth. I will end up talking to a company almost every time. It's one of the issues is flat growth. So they'll have been growing for a period of time, and then things will start to stall out, and then they'll start to wonder, are we capturing enough value? Are we leaving money on the table? Why aren't people expanding? How do we grow? Because in this never-ending game of growth, we have to be making more money from our existing customers. That is the only way to beat churn, right? So it's part of the game. So I'd say that's one of the biggest things. The other thing is that the other big problem I see a lot is that people will come and maybe they've just done a series of acquisitions or they've bought some other companies and they're trying to figure out how to piece this thing together and have a holistic story for their sales team and have a holistic story for how they capture value. That's another one. And then I would say the biggest one is almost born out of fear. They haven't changed their pricing or their packaging in years. They have tons and tons of customers on old legacy pricing, and they've realized that they have to change it because of product improvements, product development, whatever it happens to be. They've realized they have to change it, and now they're just, for the lack of a better word, they're scared. There's a lot of fear around changing their pricing because they're worried that their customers are going to churn and that their competition is going to take advantage of it and all of these kinds of things. So those are kind of the big problems. If you don't have pricing optimized, I would say I resist using the word right, because pricing is never right. It's just optimal for the moment. And it's an ongoing, iterative cycle because the market changes, your customers change, new entrants show up, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those are probably the big three things I see. And there's many more, but that's the big ones.
So what's the optimized pricing then, Bill?
What's the optimized pricing? Yeah. I think the optimized pricing is when customers are naturally expanding in your platform or your product. So they're naturally they're buying more naturally. People are moving laterally as you expect them to move. So basically, as they either grow through sophistication or size or whatever you happen to be scaling on, that all shows up. Retention starts to improve, right? That's a big indicator that pricing is correct. Retention's improving. And if you do it right, acquisition is also starting to move up. It's a little harder to impact straight with pricing and packaging, but it can be done. So I would say, optimal pricing is when you're in a situation where, like I said, there's customers are expanding naturally. You've got the sales team is starting to feel like it jives. There's less resistance on calls. Customers get it right away. Like there's all of these kinds of tells that you've got a pretty good value story.
What's the proper close rate that you see when the pricing is right?
That's a tough question because there's every industry is a little different. But if you're closing 30, 40% as they come through demo, then you're doing pretty well. I've seen lots of people with more than that. And honestly, sometimes it's a bit of a tell, unless there's some kind of juggernaut, that they're too cheap, right? Yeah. If you're closing if everybody's saying yes, you are not charging enough. Yeah. I can guarantee that for sure.
Love it.
And so I would say 30, 40%, if you're closing at that rate, you've got, that's one of the indicators that the pricing is good. But if you're closing at 30, 40% and your churn is at 10%, then there's a massive disconnect in value somewhere. Yeah.
I like that a lot. So what has worked for you in order to attract those, I'm going to guess is the C-suite of the B2B SaaS companies that you're helping? What has worked for you as a consultant in that space to attract the right person into not your demo, but like the conversations of, hey, let's see if we can help?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of giving away your best stuff. And so I try and share everything I know. I've got my core values are this: give freely, learn, lead, and celebrate others' wins. And I try and live by that constantly. And that shows up in the content that I deliver. And honestly, the best lead source for me has been LinkedIn. And when I'm consistently posting, which isn't always, but when I'm consistently posting and sharing what I know, it resonates with people and they show up. I definitely lean into my belief and my philosophy a lot. And that is my positioning. And if people believe that too, they will naturally want to work with me. And that's what's helped me the most. So like LinkedIn, organic content, video content has worked. And then of course, the customers that I work with, referring other customers. So the classic word of mouth kind of approach.
Classic B2B consultants referral system. Yeah. Tell me more about LinkedIn. So I think this is a tough nut to crack for a lot of consultants because there is so much noise on LinkedIn. It's nearly 1 billion users by now. On the other hand, you have like amazing AI tools that allow you to build content faster than the speed of light that nobody reads. So tell us a bit more about LinkedIn. How did you crack that nut? How do you make it work? What type of content do you release? And how do you get people from, okay, they've seen your posts to they get into a call with you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I have not cracked LinkedIn. Let's be clear. I have not cracked it, but it does work well for me when I do it. So for me, I try and share a variety of things. The thing that has worked the best for me is I do pricing page teardowns. And so I do videos that are, 2 to 4 minutes long, where I'll take a well-known brand and I'll go through their pricing page and I'll basically talk about where I think they're making missteps. I'll score it. I have a whole system for scoring it, and I'll talk through those. People love those, and I don't really know why. I think it's because they can all take away something from it. It's engaging. It's pretty quick. Some people tell me it should be even faster. But honestly, when I go for the highly produced versions of it, they don't perform as well as me doing this with this setup and just a screen share and going through it. And so that's been really, really good. And I think that shows people a couple things about me as a consultant. One, it shows them a little bit about how I think. It shows them a little bit about how I show up. And if they watch a couple of them, they'll realize that there's not a lot of filtering going on with the way I approach things. And I think people appreciate that in the consulting world, where so many people are trying to hustle and get them to say yes and persuade them and all that kind of stuff. I'm not interested in persuading anyone to work with me. I want them to want to work with me. And I think that's the thing. So if you can be out there, be genuine, and give away your best stuff, people will naturally want to work with you. Now, what have I done on LinkedIn? So that's one of them. The other one is that worked well for me. And this changes all the time with the algorithm, right? But some of the other things that worked really well for me were pricing timelines of companies. Like I did one on Notion where it's like where they started and where they ended up over the last 7 or 8 years or something. And that one was pretty well received. But honestly, my best performing posts are personal posts, right? My wife and I are starting to split our time between Spain and Canada. And I have had 2 posts about that I've had 2 posts about that in the last a couple of months. And one of them was literally just an offhand post. We had gone to a thing, I'm in a group called Strategic Coach, and we had gone to their couples connection, which is kind of like a 2-day seminar for you and your partner. And I had just posted a picture of us on the beach, basically saying, hey, we just spent the last 2 days connecting and planning our future. Here's the things we learned, and just reinforces our decision to move to Spain even more. I mean, it's gone crazy for me, at least, right? It's probably one of my most. So people, I don't know how much that does for you. I think it definitely makes you human. And you can see what the algorithm is optimizing for. Probably pictures of people is my guess. So yeah, it really just depends. For me, I've always just pained over the content. I have friends of mine who tell me my content is too long. I have friends of mine tell me my content is too detailed, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. It's who I am and it's what I've got. And if it works for you, that's great. Let's work together. So I guess I've just stopped caring about the algorithm so much and just try and keep posting things that resonate with me, hoping they'll resonate with other people. Now, sometimes I'll have a hot take on something and I will definitely stick my neck out, but.
No, I like that. So I want to double down on a few things here, Bill, because I think this is super valuable for B2B coaches and listening to us right now. So the nut of LinkedIn is tough to crack. We are playing with it. We are helping some clients on it. Here is what we see working well. So first of all, there is the concept of vanity metrics, right? Yes, it's great to get views, but you want to get the right views. I think any B2B coach and consultant can relate to this. We can go viral, but if it's because we are sharing memes and nothing comes from it, that's not valuable for us. If anything, that might hurt us a bit because authority, being perceived as an SME and as professional is actually important. Now, you can, of course, put a layer of humor and fun, but it's important to be perceived as an expert. On LinkedIn, the thing about personal posts is that usually this won't bring you business. But the people who are following you and who know you and who are looking you up because they have scheduled a call with you or they're starting to enter into your lead ecosystem, seeing that there is a real person behind it, the founder's story is super, super important. So I myself do some of those. We have our clients do some of them. I recommend 5 to 10% of the post being personal posts. The rest is focused on value. But like typically 1 per month, if you post every day, 1 out of 20 is very good because you're usually going to get more engagement. It is a social media after all. But that also shows the human side of the business. And then people are more interested, find out more about you, watch your other post, and that boosts the overall thing. So yeah, you say you haven't cracked it, but I think you've nailed it pretty well. One thing that you didn't tell us, Bill, though, is that I'm on your profile right now, and I see out of the last 10 posts, I see 10 podcast guesting appearances.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my next thing. So the other thing is doing shows like this, being on podcasts has been a fantastic opportunity for me. I'll tell you where it showed up the most, and maybe this is known, but the last couple of deals I've received have come through people finding me through ChatGPT. Now, I have not done any kind of AIO or any kind of like optimization around that. And in fact, I haven't even updated the website content to keep up with the things I'm posting on LinkedIn in a long, long time. But I am out there on podcasts all the time. So I assume it has a lot to do with that. And so it's surfacing me a lot when people are asking about looking for people to help them with their pricing and their B2B SaaS companies. And me, along with, some really great other people. But that's one of the things. Yeah. So I love doing podcasts. I love having conversations like this. This is kind of my one of my favorite things to do is talk about the problems we solve and just helping people get unlocked. And if there's anything anyone can take away from something I talk about on a podcast, it just makes me so happy. It goes to that core value of seeing other people win, right? So.
No, and we are huge fans of giving the knowledge away for free, selling the implementation as well. So yeah, I vibe with that. How do you, so you have multiple layers of, basically you've built a brand online, right? Between your values, like celebrating other people's wins, give freely, LinkedIn posts, mix of personal, professional, breaking down how you do things. So like showcasing your work. I like that because that's demonstrating live that what you do works. Podcasts, AEO, how do you say AI search optimization? However, you get me.
Yep.
How do you go from, okay, creating that awareness, creating people who see you, who might be like, okay, I'm going to book a call, see what happens, to closing the deal? Like, what does the sales motion look like for you?
Yeah, this is, I do all the selling, as you can imagine, in sort of the way I structure things. For me, I run through a pretty, what I would say classic discovery process. I try and, go through trying to understand what their big challenge is. I start with breaking it down tactically. I start with an upfront contract, talk to them like, hey, let's have a chat. I'll share with everything I know. If it makes sense, I'll share with you how I could help you. If we both think it's a fit. If not, no worries. You walk away learning something. Let's go. And so that just disarms them. And then we just go through a regular discovery process. And a lot of times I end up trying to solve their problem in the call, which I know is not great. So I do try and keep to my structure. I resist going into the solutioning, but I do it. And I watch my Fathom recorder for my monologues, try making sure I'm not talking too much. But yeah, so we go through that process. And usually on the call, if they're, I can kind of tell where they're at in terms of how urgent this problem is, what they're evaluating to figure it out, all those kinds of things. And I have one of 3 offers that I can share with them at that time. And so depending on where they are, so I can capture them at the very, very earliest stage if I want to, or if they're at an ongoing sort of trying to figure it out stage and they're scrappy, or if they're a larger organization that basically just needs someone to come in and settle a bunch of arguments, which is usually what happens. So once we get to that phase, I book a meeting from a meeting because you have to. So I bam fam it out and get my meeting booked for the next week, usually at the exact same time. And then in the background, I'll prepare a proposal. We use Proposify for all of our proposals. I've got a really great template for our productized service that we sell. And I use the power of AI to help me build my intro letter. I've got a really great set of prompts that takes the call I had and builds out the here's what I heard introductory letter in my voice, get that in there, fire it off to them. And then we have our next call. We review it. And it's usually a yes or no at that stage. It's not usually we're going to wait and see. Sometimes they're evaluating against a competitor. Or I can, you can kind of tell when they're shopping on price, and I probably just don't pay much attention to that. I'm very comfortable saying no. Very comfortable saying no to people. So yeah, I mean, if that answers your question, I guess that's sort of my very light sales process. There's no decks.
Does, yeah. So I recognize an Alex Hormozy fan when I see one. I mean, you probably didn't come up with BAMFAM, or did you? Or like?
No, God, no. I've worked with, I worked with and for Dan Martell for a number of years. And that was one of the things we talked about a lot when we were doing it at SaaS Academy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay. Fair enough. So how do you, so yes, that does answer the question. The thing with consulting is that there is usually long sales cycles attached to it. It's all about showcasing the value, doing the business case. I suppose that in your particular niche, this is easy to demonstrate, like, hey, look, if you manage to do this, and that with your pricing, this is what you can expect. Like the business case is usually flowing. Book a meeting from a meeting. Do you have like some follow-up process, some touch points that you keep, some connections links, some pieces of content that you send, you who are doing so many pieces of content with podcasts?
It depends on where they are in their journey. What might be helpful for them. So I've got a few pieces of content that I've created over the years that are kind of evergreen. Either here's my pricing page scorecard, or I'll tear down their pricing page. And so I did cold outreach for a while too, and I can talk about that as well and the success of that. But I'll tear down their pricing page and just send them a quick loom with me doing that, and just sort of as a, hey, like I figured ahead of our next call, I wanted to give you this. I thought it'd be helpful. Even if you don't end up working with us, you'll have something you can take away from our time together. And again, just leading with value. But honestly, I am not great at following up. I'll keep it. The BAM fam is actually my solution to the follow-up, book a meeting from a meeting.
And it works.
And I also have an amazing executive assistant who routinely puts things in my admin block in the morning. Follow up with so-and-so. You said you would follow up with this person. Because I have a whole system that when I use Fathom, records all of my calls and then pulls all the action items out, puts them in Notion, the ones that are assigned to me, and then my assistant triages those and makes sure they happen. So when I'm on a call and saying, hey, I'll send you this YouTube video of me talking about how to do a price increase, it actually happens. And so, I know my limitations. And I know that my follow through sometimes on those types of things isn't great. So I have to build systems and processes to make sure I do it.
Like that a lot, leveraging AI and automations as every
big
good
time.
consultant should.
Yeah. Look, I'm a software developer. I can't help it.
Right. You had to put your hands into Notion and Zapier.
Yeah. Last night I was up till midnight automating, pulling Fathom calls, historical Fathom calls out of using their API and Zapier and just pulling things out. And
so
it's crazy. Yeah.
I love this. I mean, this is a tangent, but on Sunday I spent 6 hours trying to automate. So this between StreamYard, Captivate, the podcast we use to distribute the podcast, and Apple Podcast, Spotify, and so on, couldn't figure it out because the link is broken. It's so fun and it's so fascinating. Well, it's a bit frustrating when you don't get the automation to work the way you want. That's what we do, business owners. So when I was at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Bill, and the partner that kind of taught me everything about consulting, told me this very specific thing that I liked a lot, which is, Guillaume, there are 2 types of consultants. There are the hunters and there are the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. That's my jam. And he was like, but the consultants, the partners bringing in the most money are the farmers, the ones able to take that initial engagement and transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year project, feeding other teams from PwC. Those are the ones who go the furthest and the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about acquisition, that's my jam. I love it. How do you retain? Because especially since you come in to fix the pricing, right? Once it's fixed, what else? Like, how do you keep on engaging with your clients? How do you keep adding value to, farm the existing relationships that you have?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually cracked this the way I want to. One of the biggest things that I want to get, as I move forward over the next couple of years, is just really cracking that on recurring revenue for pace pricing. The closest thing I have to recurring, and it's probably very familiar to a lot of consultants, is kind of the ongoing advisory. And so I've tried to productize this a little bit in terms of, okay, we're always going to have experiments in the field. We're always going to be measuring things. We're always going to be looking at things. I saddle up next to the product teams pretty heavily and the marketing teams, because they're the ones that have to, this is the way I think about it, is that product is the thing that creates the value. Marketing is the thing that communicates the value, and pricing is the thing that captures the value. And so, and said another way, that flows through sales, right? So sales, product, and marketing. And so there's always things to be done in that realm. One of the things I try and do is work with the product teams about, when they're thinking about new features, it's like, cool, we need to be thinking about monetization before we start building this damn thing, because if we don't, we're going to end up building it in a way that's probably not lined up with the way we want to monetize it. So let's think about that early. So those are kinds of the things that I do. So after we finish a large project, I will try and, be retained on an advisory capacity where we meet a couple times a month and I'm working with their teams. But it often isn't the case. Sometimes the recommendations that we make actually take quite a long time for them to implement. And so a pricing project could change their value metric entirely, could mean they have to do a lot of product work, and it could take 6 months before they're ready to even roll it out. And then if they're trying to actually move people from old pricing to new pricing, that's a long process as well. And so I do try and come alongside there, but often doesn't happen. What I do find though, is that I get a lot of repeat business. So I get people that have worked with me and we've done a pricing project and it's gone well. Like one company, I've done their pricing 3 times. They'll do it, they'll get to a level, it'll start working, and then something will, as they evolve their product, something will start to break. something's changed in the market, and we'll come back, we'll reanalyze, figure out where we need to go and reset and just keep building. And so that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I haven't actually cracked it, because there is one of the big things I need to share with people is that, pricing isn't a one and done exercise. A lot of people think it is. And at a certain size, it is, right? But most people, if you're a going concern, you're 5, 10, 15, $20 million, it's something you should be looking at least quarterly. You should be looking at it all the time at your product, and you should be always looking at it through your positioning. So I haven't cracked that nut. So if anybody has cracked that nut, let me know.
So something interesting that you mentioned here that I want to double down on is recurring business versus reoccurring, or like repeating business. Have you thought about referral partners? The thing that pops to my mind right now is, okay, whilst a B2B SaaS company, once they get their price fixed, they're probably not going to look at it for another year or another couple of months whatsoever. But people who are directly interacting with the B2B SaaS companies, I'm thinking about VC funds, investment funds, the ones who will see and invest in companies, and like being partnered with them so that when they get a new B2B SaaS company in, it's like, hey, you might want to have me look at their pricing, because profitability and valuation will come from it as well. Is that something that you do, like developing a referral partner network?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in a couple things. One, collaborations, I'm a really big fan of. So if people have reach into a space, I'm very happy to dig into that. And it often comes referral through our clients. So if we're working with a VC-backed client, there'll be a board deck presentation that talks about the pricing work they did, and somebody on the board will ask, hey, who did this work? This is fascinating or interesting. We have this problem. And then I'll get put through the VC mill. So there's actually a couple of VCs where I'm kind of the pricing guy. But honestly, it doesn't generate a ton of business, and I don't nurture it enough. I probably should, but it doesn't generate a ton of business. And I've done it on the PE route as well, on the PE side. Now, there are PE firms that are all, they all come in different shapes and sizes and flavors. Some of the ones I've worked with have been definitely the ones that just want to squeeze the crap out of the companies they bought and make it really painful for those people. And it doesn't really line up with my core values. So I sometimes I'll choose not to work with PE firms that are just trying to squeeze their team. So, maybe I have a few battle scars of my own from my own acquisitions and companies, but yeah, I try and stay away from those. So for me, it's really about finding those people that line up value-wise and get those. So I've definitely worked with some VC funds that have that, and it's been really, really exciting.
Nice. So I think you've covered some of those, which I appreciate a lot and which is super interesting. Meaning we don't, despite what we want, the image that we want to broadcast online, we don't have everything figured out, right? We are like everyone, we figure things out as we go. So my question was going to be, where do you feel stuck right now? I feel you've already given us a bit of thoughts around this, like not completely cracked LinkedIn, but a bit still, how to retain clients, like how to do recurring business. So I'm going to tweak a bit the question. What's the next big thing for you, Bill? And I'm not talking like 24, 36 months, right? It's great to look at the future, but I'd like us to be more practical and tactical. What's the next big thing for you in the next 3 to 6 months? Like, what are you looking forward to implement and that you think is going to unlock the next level of growth?
Yeah, so I continue to productize my learnings and my offering. And so I'm really doubling down on that and really getting it to the point where I could teach it to someone else. So that's definitely something I want to do. I'm working on a book. So that's happening. But the biggest thing that I'm really leaning into is, as consultants, we, often will do either, retainer work or project work. And for me, I do a lot of project work. And I've built a company that did a lot of project work, in the mobile design and studio phase. And I've realized I kind of don't necessarily want to build that company again. And so, eating what you kill is fine, but I would like to have that recurring piece. So like I said, so the thing for me in the next 3 to 6 months is leaning into collaborations with other people where there is a value exchange, where I come alongside. We either bring our, I'm a big fan of Collab, Chad Jenkins. He has this thing called Collab where he talks about vision, capability, and reach. And if you can bring those things together, there's lots of great things you can do, create something new. And so I've been exploring possibilities around that, which is a little bit less traditional, but more around participating in the upside of my clients. I have pitched several times to my clients. Like they're like, oh, this is really expensive, because sometimes our deals are, multi 6-figure deals. And they'll say, oh, it's really, I'm like, well, I'm happy to do it for a share of ARR. Right. So let's put our money where our mouth is. If I raise, we increase ARR by 15%, I'll happily take, 1% of ARR for a period of time. Almost inevitably they go, nope, no problem. We'll just pay your multi 6-figure amount. But when I do find people who are willing to take that bet, it's always a really good collaboration, because I always say a good deal is when both sides feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
you've
good.
got skin in the game. So I'm really looking forward to those in the next 3 to 6 months. I'm looking for like-minded people with great reach, great vision, great capability to come together and create something new. And I want to take on a number of those to the point where that is largely what I do. So I've given myself a 2-year transition period to go from pure project-based to pure collaboration-based, and we'll see how it goes.
That was an absolute masterclass. Thank you so much, Bill. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, where should they go?
LinkedIn is probably the best place. I'm WDR Wilson on most platforms. I'm most active on LinkedIn. And you can find me there. So just search for Bill Wilson pricing. You'll probably find it. If you search for Bill Wilson, you're going to find a lot of other people. So make sure you put in pricing and you'll find me.
We'll put all the links in the description. And what I can say for sure is that you've gained at least one connection from this interview. Me, I just added you. Bill, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thanks so much. This is a blast.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.
Cool.
What was that, Bill?